CGI Thomas. It was horrible. Series 12 through 16 was a really dark age for Thomas, also considering that 8 through 11, the series before, were not much better. But starting with Series 17, a new head writer was hired. Meet Andrew Brenner, the savior of Thomas and Friends. Andrew started working with Blue Mountain Mystery as the script editor and eventually took over by King of the Railway, bringing the franchise into a Renaissance era, or the Brennathon, as the fans called it. Brenner had written many great Thomas stories, so which is my favorite? All Reliable Edward, Henry's Hero, Over the Hill, Terrence Breaks the Ice, Thomas Gets Bumped, Duncan and the Grumpy Passenger, Tit for Tat. Wait, Thomas Gets Bumped? That's a Series 3 episode. Okay, time for a history lesson. It was hard for me to find this information, so if you do have different information that conflicts with mine, please let me know, or just any excess information, because it's really hard to find this stuff. But basically, Andrew Brenner worked on these little magazine stories for Marvel, apparently. One of these stories was A Bump on the Line, and the TV series crew saw these magazines and started to adapt some of these stories for Series 3, since there weren't enough more Railway series stories with Thomas in them, so I kind of get this logic. So, yeah, the first Brenner episode, I guess, was Thomas Gets Bumped, and not only that, it was the first one that wasn't from the original Railway series. Besides Thomas's Christmas Party. I think that got adapted later, though. I don't know, that's a weird situation, but we're gonna just ignore it for now. So, okay, you know what? It's not my actual favorite Brenner episode. I know that little section up before made it sound like that, but it's one of them, to be honest. I'm gonna give my thoughts on Thomas Gets Bumped and why it's not only one of the most underrated Brenner episodes, but the most underrated Thomas and Friends episode. The episode shows some of Thomas's branch line before jumping into the story. Thomas is running late, and one day Percy tells Thomas that if he doesn't get his act together, Sir Topham Hatt might replace him. This made Thomas start to worry. The next day, he's flagged down by a station and conductor and some children. The school bus had broken down, meaning Thomas would have to pick them up so that the parents wouldn't get worried. He got the kids to Bertie and was very, very late. This just gets Thomas more worried. The next morning, Thomas checked the station for Sir Topham Hatt. He wasn't there. So he was just doing the usual when the narrator shows us a sun-bent stretch of track ahead. Thomas's driver warns him, but it's too late. The railway now has to temporarily close, and Bertie takes Thomas's passengers. Thomas now fears that the passengers will like Bertie more than him, but after his branch line is mended, he's back to work as per usual. And that's kinda where it ends. Thomas and Bertie easily have one of my favorite duos in all of Thomas and Friends, and this is no exception. I also like how Sir Topham Hatt is treated as a serious threat, but someone who also cares about his engines, something Brenner is pretty great at. Percy is severely out of character. It's my only real complaint with the episode. The episode takes place after Percy's promise, so you'd think they'd be friends by now. I feel like Percy's promise was the episode to solidify that Thomas and Percy are friends, but in this episode, Percy casually just gives Thomas a replacement threat, which is weird, to say the least. Like, it would have made sense in maybe Series 2, but it doesn't affect the episode too much, considering it's just a plot device, although I feel like the role would be better suited to someone like Diesel or James, who actually appears in this episode, by the way. Another criticism is, well, the episode's a tad confusing. This genuinely feels like it could be expanded to a 10 to maybe even 20-minute episode with how fast it's rushed, especially during the ending. Something great is the music. Thomas's Series 3 is the theme for him is just a bop. It always was, so yeah. But what really stands out is Thomas's danger theme. I can't explain in words how great it is, so I'm just gonna let you hear it. would I rate this episode out of 5? I'd say 3 out of 3.7 probably. I'm not saying it's mid, but just compared to the other Series 3 episodes, such as Percy's Promise, Escape, or even Thomas Percy and the Mail Train, which was written by Brenner. This is a really good episode and definitely worth the watch. Brenner kept improving from here, and it's nice to see where he started. Anyway, that just about wraps up this video. What do you think about Thomas Gets Bumped? Is there any episode you consider be even more underrated than this one? Tell me in the comments below, and I will see you next time.